the paddle channel has, we find that a lot of our listeners are really, they're people like Barry and myself. We
Mhm.
started sharing our videos of our journey learning surf ski.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people are like us, like they're getting into the sport of surf ski, and
Yes.
they may not know who Hayley Nixon is.
Sure.
And so
Well, I
let's
don't.
talk about who Hayley Nixon is for a second.
So Hayley Nixon, me, obviously born and bred Durban, South Africa. Not your typical paddler who came through the nippers kind of life-saving route, which a lot of South Africans and maybe Australians did typically. But, you know, as I mentioned previously with you, probably the bulk of my career was spent racing rowing boats, and definitely huge aspirations there. And that was, you know, I credit sort of 10 years of racing and really intense rowing training in the lead up to Olympics to like good cardiovascular system, good VO2 max, learning how to train, learning how to be in the hurt box. And then when I left rowing, sadly, I obviously then changed sports to paddling. So that's why I feel like I can relate
Sadly,
to.
but that you say sadly, but it's great for us.
Yeah, well, it is like to this day, it's like it's the best and worst thing that ever happened to me, you know. And I always say to people when they're faced in that struggle, like, I know now you don't want to hear that this is the best thing, going to be the best thing in a few years, because when it did happen, I was crushed. But like the 5-year change from Hayley not going to the Olympics to Hayley becoming world champion was just something I never would have dreamed of. So that's, you know, that's a cool success story.
So you went from not paddling surf ski at all
Yeah, no
world
paddling at all.
to world champion in 5 years, you said?
Yeah, I think I started paddling 2013
Yeah,
and I was world champion in 2017.
2017. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was
Molokai winner
Molokai winner in 2018.
in 20. Okay, all right. So what's neat about you, and kind of helps us relate. Obviously, we are not at the level of athlete that you are, but the learning journey is still fresh for you in your
Yes,
mind. And
yes.
what we found is sometimes some of the professional paddlers they've been paddling so long they can't actually relate back to what it was like when we were trying to
Yeah,
learn, especially as an adult trying to learn how to do this sport, because it's kind of hard.
yeah,
It's
and
challenging. It can be challenging. Yeah.
yeah, and that's how I felt because I came in, I think, just on my 30th birthday, and you know, by then you're quite established. You're in your sport. Like most people who are coming into paddling are in their 30s are actually like an older elite paddler.
Hmm.
So I definitely agree to that. Like, so now it's like, I mean, and this, and take this with a pinch of salt, but it's like old dog, new tricks. So whether you're 30 and trying to learn a new sport or 40 or 50, like it's still tough. Um, and surf ski is challenging because there's like just the fear of the ocean and the unknown. And then there's just the fact that like you could go out 10 times in a row on a nice flat day and finally think you're getting momentum and you're getting the hang of it, and then you arrived and it's a thumping onshore and you're like, is this a new sport? Like, did I get dementia? Like, how do I not know how to do this
A
anymore?
whole different thing. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what always made racing so interesting because you never knew what the conditions were going to be like. And like, if you were a traditional downwind paddler, you were furious if it wasn't windy. And if you were somebody who preferred flat water, you were scared if it was windy. But like, you need to prepare for everything because this is Mother Nature that you're racing. You know, not a like a swimming pool with just lane ropes.
Yeah, and really, I mean, for us here, I mean, if we can get on the ocean, we're on the ocean. If we can
Yes,
get safely out and
yes,
safely get back in without breaking anything, then that's where we are.
yes, yes.
But there was a lot of in between time where we were doing a lot of flat water,
Yeah.
and we still do. We still do a fair bit of flat water paddling. We do both, but we're trying to get in the rough water as much as we can because it's just more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that here in Jupiter. There's very, very keen people, very, very keen surf ski paddlers, but they're spending 80, 90, 95% on the intracoastal.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the ocean's daunting.
Well, this brings us to the next part of who Hayley is or where Hayley is. So Hayley, I mean,
Yes.
clearly you talk funny, so you're not quite from Florida. So you've moved to Florida now. You're in the Jupiter area now.
Yes.
And
So
tell me what's going on there. What are you doing there?
yeah, so I moved here with my husband and daughter about 4 months ago. So we're still pretty, you know, fresh and new in town. We are wanting to start a surf ski academy here in Florida. Coming from my experience now of paddling, seeing how we've developed paddling in Durban, seeing how it grows in other countries, and just knowing what paddling needs. Paddling needs water and paddling needs less barriers to entry. And it doesn't get better in terms of like geography here in Jupiter. There's just water everywhere. There's intracoastal water everywhere. if you're a beginner and you don't want to go in the ocean yet, there's more water than you could ever dream of. And if you do want to start getting into the ocean, you know, there's obviously tons of coastline. So to me, it just seems like a no-brainer. Like I'm genuinely quite shocked that surf ski paddling is not a bigger sport here. Like it's just the water quality. I mean, it just like when I look at the conditions we paddle in back home and how many paddlers we have, you'd think no one would want to paddle at home. There's like 12-foot shore break that you've got to navigate just before you get out. So that is my dream. And there's a fellow paddler here, Kim Robertson, who's equally passionate about it. And our goal is we've already got a squad that we've claimed as Flow Squad. But then we want to start more of a professional actual surf ski academy where we can teach people to paddle and grow the sport.
And so, and I guess the point of the academy, are you guys doing things like to lower the entry barrier as part of the academy?
Yeah.
Because I know that's one of the challenges is, you know, I never saw myself paddling a surf ski. We had a local ocean rescue guy here who was paddling, you know, when I was out paddling the outrigger, he would always come up with his surf ski hoisted up on his shoulders. And, you know, the darn guy always had his shirt off and rippling muscles. And I was like, you know, well, if I'm not that guy, I can't paddle a surf ski, because everybody I knew paddled surf ski, they were extremely fit and it looked hard. I mean, it just looked like and I just assumed it was going to be too difficult for me to pick up.
Sure.
And now that I have picked it up, it's I don't think I've ever done any sport that I enjoy more.
Yeah. And I mean, like each sport has its challenges. I mean, you know, even just look at golf. Like, I mean, look, whatever sport. I mean, there's a certain amount of skill that you have to acquire, but it's not a difficult sport. And I think the fact that we're seated makes our does make our center of gravity so much lower. So I think it's so funny. Like SUP paddling is so big here, but I think SUP is probably more difficult because, you know, it's that whole one-sided and it's the angle, and it's also an awesome sport. But I just think us being sat lower, and maybe people getting rid of the perception that it's like this big arm sport. It's actually not. It's not an arm sport. It's a hips and a legs and a rotation sport. Like, so I think in terms of those like barriers to entry, like we want to see why people aren't paddling. Is it just accessibility to boats and craft? Is it fear of the water? So they maybe just need some guides to make it fun. And then, yeah, exactly like you say, I think it's just the perception. Like it's not a hugely big sport here, so people aren't seeing it a lot. Whereas now, just in the couple of months I've been here, we've been paddling regularly twice a week, a Thursday and a Saturday. And we've already had people come up to us in the car park and be like, "Oh, I've seen you guys here every week. Yeah, I saw you on the water the other day. Like that looks so cool. What is this sport?" So yeah, I think accessibility to the sport will help.
Yeah, yeah. So and when you guys start them, I've heard you talk about this before, and I think one of the things about getting the accessibility to the sport or getting into the sport and getting started, I think a lot of people are just like, well, where do I start?
Yeah.
What do I do? So that's something you guys are really going to address there. For our people who aren't in the Jupiter area,
yeah,
what advice do you have for somebody who's looking to get into the sport?
Look, I think you've got to reach out. First and foremost, you've got to get your bum in a boat. So you've got to find how you can get hold of a ski, be it a plastic, you know, be it glass, be it carbon fiber, you know, carbon. It doesn't really matter, but it's accessibility to a boat. So maybe first thing is to reach out to someone in your area, or even to someone like me. Like if you might be on the other side of the country, but I might know someone who's near you. Even our online coaching squad, we used to coach people all over America. We were based in Durban, South Africa. So the paddling world is so small. So I think it'd be quite easy to find someone to actually get a craft. If you are faced with a position where you literally just on your own, you're in a tiny little town somewhere and there's nobody else that wants to paddle, but you want to paddle, then YouTube is your best friend as well. Let's be honest. They are just, I mean, exactly like this. There are so many videos. There's so much information out there. But I also think people mustn't be afraid to reach out. Like I will willingly pick up my phone and spend an hour talking to somebody just to give them a base to start on, if that's what it came to. So get a boat, reach out to a coach, and maybe just start stalking some YouTube videos to get an idea where to go.
Now I know that you do have a number of YouTube videos that I've seen.
I have some.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall. If I were better prepared, I would know. What was the name of the YouTube channel most recently?
So we're called Ocean Riders.
Ocean Riders,
which is actually like there's more to it. We were myself and a friend, a colleague that I worked with back home. She was very much into surfing, and I was obviously into surfski paddling. But we were both biokineticists, so we wanted to marry like our passion on the water with our passion like in strength and conditioning and rehabilitation. So we created all this content that was surfing specific, but paddling specific, but also like land-based training to complement those two sports as well.
Right. So kind of the supplemental training that goes with
Yeah.
that, increasing durability and all of those
Yeah.
things. are so important.
And this is a conversation I used to have with a lot of people, because I just said, not everyone can afford to be on the water multiple times, a week. Maybe you can only get 2 or 3 times on a week on the water. But so what can you do on land to complement it? And also, I hate to say it, but as we get older, we get stiffer and tighter, and we're not so flexible, and our cores get weak because we sit in front of laptops all day.
You don't even know yet. Yeah. That's the truth.
So like there's plenty you can do to try and change that so that you actually can be more comfortable in the boat, because it's impossible to get your stroke right if your shoulders only got 60 degrees of range of motion or something, or like you can't sit up because your core is too weak. It fails after 20 seconds or 10 minutes. So
yeah, you were talking about as we get older, we get, and I know a lot of our viewers they kind of fall into my age group. I think they've kind of gotten to the point where life where they're picking up a new sport.
Yes.
And for me, triathlon, I couldn't really do triathlons. They weren't fun anymore because my knees were getting old and achy. And I found that this sport seems to be the perfect, it's low impact, but it is, as you said, it's full body, and it's not just cardiovascular.
No.
It's muscular. It's just full body. And I found that the rhythm and flow of it has really been I don't have the back pain that I used to have.
Yes.
Great for the core. So it's just such a good sport.
And that's what, sorry.
Yeah, but you're too young to know that yet, right? Yeah.
No, I've had a desk job, like a laptop based job, for the last 14 months, and I have seen and felt the difference.
You feel it too, yeah.
When I was working as a bio, I was on my feet all day, lifting a weight, helping this, moving a patient. Like I was so active. And then now I'm sitting at a desk for 8 to 10 hours a day. Like it's quick. The decline is quick.
There's so many of us are, yeah.
Yeah. And we see so much of that back home. We've got retired rugby players, triathletes, comrades runners, all these people who put a lot of pressure on their body and their joints for a couple of decades. And then they come to paddling and they find like a bit of peace, especially just to be not so weight bearing. But yeah, you ask anybody who's had a heart rate chest strap on during a maximal interval or a hard race, and I promise you, your heart rate's getting as high as it does when you're running. It recruits almost everything, if you're doing it properly.
Yeah, I've been paying a lot of attention lately to how we perform as we get older. And so I'm almost 60 now. And and I want to be faster. So I'm faster now on the surfski than I was last year, which is good. But I think a lot of that's technique. But it almost seems like the surfski is sort of the perfect anti-aging sport. And then it has all of it's easy for you to get the long cardiovascular, the base work, the aerobic conditioning that you need with the Zone 2 paddles. But it also is an easy way, not always easy, but a great way to get the higher intensity efforts, and that we need so much as we get older. So my background is in exercise physiology as well before I really moved over into software development and what I'm doing now. So we could talk about this stuff.
Heart rate zones for days.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in hearing what your experience has been. Like, have you worked a lot with older paddlers?
I would say a larger majority or percentage of our even online clients were 50 plus, men and women. And I think it's quite an interesting thing for young, and if I would say old, if I just made it black and white like that, to try and convince people that training until your heart actually pops is not necessarily the best way to train. That actually maybe 80% 80% of your training being at 70% of your heart rate is probably better for you, with maybe 2 maximal sessions a week, especially with age, because we need more time to rest, whether we believe it or not.
Yeah. So I'm hearing some maffetone.
Yes. Oh, we love Phil. So my coach Linton Hope based all our training off the math equation. So from the day that I started training with him, he said to me, "Where's your heart rate monitor?" And no, I don't want the wristwatch. I want the chest strap.
Right.
Get that. We do some time trials. We get your heart rates, and then we'll talk. And then we based all our training and all the athletes we've coached on their training zone. So not Rod and Hayley get on the water and chase each other around until one of you drops off.
Right.
Rod, you go paddle at your heart rate. Hayley, you go paddle at yours. If it means you guys can't paddle side by side, sorry, this isn't a tea party. Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
which
And
we found worked really well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And I think that's one of the advantages too of like what you're starting to do with the academy there is what you guys are doing is that when you have that group like that, it's so much more fun to train
Yes,
together and to
it
paddle
is.
together. But when you have a group like that, there's almost always somebody that you can paddle with.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not Rod trying to chase
Yeah.
Hayley. It's Rod
And
paddling
trying to
with
chase
somebody who
himself.
can actually, yeah.
But there is time for that, and don't get me wrong, we all get sucked into like, oh, I just want to beat him this week, or I just want to beat her, and that's fine. And there is a time for that. But we tried to get away from the sort of every session is a race kind of training.
Yeah, that's
Some sessions can be a race,
yeah,
not all of them.
right. Yeah, that's good. So, all right. So, but are you guys are you doing online training now?
Yeah, we are still doing online training. It's still through my coach Linton. We've got an online training program called Wild Dog.
Wild Dog?
Wild Dog, yeah. So we were this squad back home that was it's a bit of a long story, but there was a really phenomenal South African paddler, Wayne Wilson, who was Wayne Wild Dog Wilson, and he passed away. And sort of in memory of him, the squad just took on the name Wild Dogs. And then when Linton and I started the online section, it just made sense to carry it on. So that's always been our sort of online squad is the Wild Dogs.
So it sounds like, and we're going to run out of time here shortly, but I do want to make sure. So if people are in the Florida area, just specifically around Jupiter,
yes,
which is just a pretty area. What's a great area to paddle?
Oh, it's like heaven.
And I believe when I was down in Fort Pierce a few weeks ago when I met you there,
Yes,
there were a number of Jupiter paddlers who were up in Fort Pierce,
correct.
and it looks like you just got a great group going there. I mean, some of the it's friendly group. So if that's something that might be keeping somebody, I mean, I found that the surfski community is so welcoming and so inviting and so ready to share because everybody loves the sport and they're ready to share the sport.
Yes.
So for people who are watching this, if that's what's holding you back, I mean, find a group, find somebody, reach out to Hayley.
Yes, with
reach
pleasure.
out to us, let us help find you a group to paddle with. So, and I know that over in Tampa, Omar's got a great group going over that way. So there are a lot of options, especially in Florida. It was so much fun. I think we had 40 to look on the beach in Fort Pierce, and there were 40 surf skis on the beach.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
So people in the Jupiter area can get in touch with you. How?
Yeah, absolutely. Either through Facebook, or if they get hold of my email address or contact details, phone me. But don't be shy. Like, and even in our group now, like we've got a wide range of speed and ability. We've got someone who was on an OC1 for the first 6 to 8 weeks and now has moved on to a surfski. So it's a really opening group. Like anything goes and anyone must come along.
Okay, so what I'll do is we'll post some contact info
with
this video. And guys, I just want to encourage you that I've had a ball meeting Hayley and talking with Hayley. Very open, very just I mean, you can tell from the conversation you love the sport and you love helping other people love the sport.
Yes.
I just want to encourage everybody to go ahead and take advantage of that. It is a great sport. Thank you, Hayley. I appreciate you taking time.
No, it's a pleasure. I love doing this. I'll do it again. And like I say, if anyone reaches out, I'd be happy to help and come and join us on a Thursday night with pleasure.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.